Life is like a river that flows endlessly. Some people rush into the rapids, struggling to swim upstream to avoid being swept away. Others let themselves go with the flow, letting fate take them. But how many people really understand the path they are on? We are born, grow up, and then rush into the cycle of life. Work, money, responsibilities. All of them drag us into a never-ending loop. There are days when we ask ourselves, am I living or just existing? People make a living to maintain their lives, but sometimes they forget how to live happily. There are people who make a living in making a living, meaning they work hard, chasing money without ever stopping to enjoy. They live in anxiety, in pressure, and sometimes forget why they started. But there are also people who choose to make a living in happiness. They still work, still face challenges, but they don't let themselves get overwhelmed. They find joy in the little things, are grateful for what they have, and most importantly, they know that life is not just a never-ending race. Kaito, a man who once threw himself into the work cycle, chasing after what he believed would bring success. But then, one day, amidst the heavy pressure, he suddenly stopped and asked himself, is this the only way to live? Kaito's journey is not only his own story, but also a mirror for many of us. Everyone has times when they are tired, have moments when they want to give up, have days when they wonder if there is anything more to life than work and responsibilities. Kaito used to think that his life was an endless loop. Every morning, he woke up to the sound of his alarm clock, his eyes still bleary from lack of sleep. In his small apartment, he hurriedly got dressed, checked his phone, skimmed through a few work emails before even getting out of bed. A quick cup of coffee, a hasty slice of toast, and then he rushed out into the street, immersing himself in the bustling crowd. Everyone busy, everyone in a hurry, as if everyone was racing against time. On the crowded train, Kaito quietly looked out the window. The tall buildings passed by like part of a familiar picture he had seen 1,000 times. Bustling streets, bustling people. Everyone had somewhere to go, something to do, and so did he. His office was a cold, high-rise building where everyone was buried in their computers. Meetings followed one another, from morning to evening, with seemingly no time to breathe. His inbox was always full of emails that needed immediate responses. His phone constantly vibrated with urgent work messages. In front of him was a computer screen with dozens of numbers, reports, plans, and unfinished goals. The colleagues around him were equally busy. Everyone was racing against time. Everyone had too much to do, but never enough time. Day after day, week after week, year after year, Kaito was so immersed in that cycle that sometimes he forgot himself. He couldn't remember the last time he had truly enjoyed a meal without rushing. Lunch was usually just a quick lunchbox right on his desk, eating while typing, eyes never leaving the screen. He couldn't remember the last time he stopped to look at the sky, to feel the fresh morning air, or simply to relax his heavy shoulders. Kaito was always busy, always in a hurry. But sometimes, when the night fell and the city gradually fell silent, he would sit alone in front of the computer screen, looking at the lifeless numbers and ask himself, what am I doing all this for? Am I really happy? However, those questions only flashed for a moment. Then he pushed them aside, because tomorrow morning he still had to continue. Still the meetings, the numbers, the plans. Still another day rushing by. One evening, When returning home after a long day, Kaito suddenly stopped on the bridge near his house. The night wind blew gently, carrying the cold air of the city at night. Beneath his feet, the water flowed quietly, reflecting the yellow streetlights, flickering like fragments of memories. He leaned against the railing, silently watching the endless flow, and suddenly asked himself, "Am I really living, or just existing?" This question did not appear for the first time, but this time it made him choke. For many years, he had been tirelessly pursuing work, rushing into goals that kept coming one after another without a stopping point. There was success, there was money, but why was it that every time he stopped, all he felt was emptiness? Standing in the middle of the night, with the lights silently reflecting themselves on the water, Kaito realized that perhaps it was time for him to find a real answer. One day, on a rare weekend morning off, Kaito wandered through an old market. Amidst the bustling crowd of shoppers, amidst the small stalls displaying everything from old books, ceramics, to hand-painted paintings, he happened to run into an acquaintance, Kenji, an old friend from college. Kenji used to be like him, also an office worker who was busy every day in an endless cycle. But today, in front of Kaito, was not a busy and tired person, but a Kenji who looked calmer and more relaxed than ever. They sat down next to a small park. After listening to Kaito's story, Kenji took a breath, his eyes distant, as if he was reminiscing about the past. In the past, I also used to chase after work, used to think that having money meant having everything. But then I realized, if I just threw myself into work without finding meaning, without joy, we need money to live. But if we live only for money, that is not the life I want. After hearing those heartfelt words, Kaito lowered his head. Those words, for some reason, made Kaito stunned, like a gentle knife cutting into every thought, every belief that he had carried for so long. Kaito began to spend more time trying to find balance in his life. On weekends, he would visit a temple where the sounds of life seemed to slow down. The ringing of bells in the wind, the gentle footsteps of monks, and the sound of leaves falling to the ground. Every morning, he would sit on the temple porch, close his eyes, take a deep breath, and feel each moment pass by. At first, his mind was still agitated, but gradually, each breath helped him let go of his worries. When he returned home, instead of turning on the computer to check his work like before, Kaito turned to books. He began to read about life philosophies, about people who had gone through similar crises, but found ways to overcome them. Sitting on a chair by the window, he flipped through the pages, sipping a cup of tea and letting the words lead him into another world, a world where people not only chase success, but also learn to live slowly, learn to enjoy life. Meditation helped Kaito calm his mind, and books helped him expand his thinking. Gradually, he realized that in the past, he had let himself be so immersed in work that he forgot the value of the little things in life. A quiet morning, an afternoon with a good book, or even just a moment of sitting quietly observing the life around him. All of these things could bring him the peace he thought he would never have. These new habits didn't change his life immediately, but they planted a seed in him, a seed of mindfulness, of appreciation. Kaito is now full of energy, with a bright smile and sparkling eyes. He still works, but he is no longer caught up in the tiring cycle. Instead of just chasing money, he finds joy and meaning in each day. At the office, he not only discusses work, but also inspires his colleagues, helping them realize the true value of life. In addition, he shares his journey, hoping that his story can help someone find themselves again. Those around him have noticed the change. Kaito is no longer a lost man, but has become proof that we can make a living in happiness, living and enjoying every moment to the fullest. The saying, "Make a living to make a living, and make a living to be happy," is a profound reminder to find a balance between daily responsibilities and the things that bring joy and meaning to life. It encourages us to not only work to live, but also live to find happiness. Modern life pushes us into a constant cycle. We work from morning to night, chasing the goals set by society, hoping that one day we will achieve success and happiness. But have you ever wondered, does that success really bring happiness? Or are we just caught up in the cycle of work? Kaito's story is the story of many people. People who work hard to make a living, but forget the most important thing, feeling life. There are times when we think that if we just reach a certain level of income, have a stable job, or own material things that society admires, we will be happy. But in reality, if we are still filled with stress, anxiety, and emptiness, no matter how much we have, it will not be able to fill it. Making a living is an inevitable part of life, but the important thing is how we choose to make a living. If we know when to stop, know how to listen to ourselves, and find joy in simple things, we will not only work to survive, but also work to enjoy. That is the difference between making a living and making a living in happiness. You don't have to give up everything to find happiness. Happiness is not a distant destination, but how we experience each day. Sometimes, just a leisurely morning with a cup of coffee, an afternoon walk, or a moment of true connection with a loved one. That is what makes life worthwhile. So, if you are feeling tired, try stopping for a moment. Ask yourself, are you truly living, or are you just existing? And if the answer isn't what you want, it might be time to make a change. It doesn't have to be a big leap, just a little at a time. Learning to breathe, learning to listen to yourself, learning to appreciate what you have. Because ultimately, what we seek is not just a life full of fulfillment, but a life with meaning.